welcome to another edition of Pro Paintball Weekly. I'm your host, E-Money, and today we're talking the NXL breakdown for 07, and we're going to preview all the teams and tell you where we think they're going to end up for the 07 campaign. First of all, let me apologize to all my viewers. Last week in studio, we had the one, the only Maximus Lundquist from Joy Division here to break his new story about him playing with San Diego Legacy for the entire 07 NXL season, and all hosts of other big news and big player signings. But alas, the media company I chose to work with had their studio broken into and everything was stolen. Cameras, tapes, computers, you name it. So unfortunately, all that information is gone. So I'll do my best to recap exactly what went down. I'll do my best to try to remember the great stuff that Maximus said. So again, I apologize to all my sponsors and everyone working with Maximus, and to Maximus himself, who came down and did such a great show with us. So the show must go on. So here we go. We're going to go team by team of the NXL. We're going to talk about where they were a little bit last year and where we see them this year, whether they're going to be higher than they were last year, the same, or lower than they were last year. All right, without further ado, let's get it on here. Let's start at the top. A team that needs no introduction, Boston Red Legion. That's right, Boston Red Legion dominated the 06 NXL campaign. These guys were unstoppable. And again, I don't see anything different in 07. These guys are going to continue to dominate. A couple great key free agent signings Maximus went into. I believe Dave Baines is one of those. Of course, they still have the Blonsky brothers in New York. And of course, Alex Lundquist, Maximus's brother. And, of course, a host of other Russian stars that are going to, again, do more damage to the U.S. here in the 07 campaign. Well, Maximus did have this to add, though. He did say, as long as Boston Red Legion trains like they did in 06, there's nothing stopping them in 07. So it appears that the only thing that could stop the Red Legion is the Red Legion themselves. However, I'm going to put this asterisk on it. I do think it's not going to be as easy as it was in 06. I think there's a handful of teams that are going to give Boston a run for their money each and every event. So they need to be in tip-top shape if they're going to repeat as champions. So for Boston Red Legion, I see them staying the same and being crowned 07 champions in 07, of course, but not without a fight. All right, moving on. Let's talk about San Diego Dynasty, the boys in blue. Some consider Dynasty having an off year in 06. Off year, they were number 1 in the MPPL, number 2 overall in the NXL. A lot of people don't know that. Maximus didn't know that. That's right, number 2 overall. So if you talk to any pro team owner, let's say Rocky or even Jeff Stein or New York Hurricanes, go, hey, would you mind an off year where you're number 1 in the MPPL, number 2 in the NXL? I don't think they would mind at all. So the boys in blue, although the nucleus is changing in that organization, the key players that are left starting to get smaller and smaller. Still have Alex, still have Greenspan. But again, some of the guys, obviously have Oliver, and some of the other guys have retired and moved on. So the nucleus is getting smaller, but they're continuing to do great things and making it work. I see more of the same from Dynasty in the NXL in 07. I don't see them dominating as they did before, but I do see them being in a strong performance. I see them being one of the elite teams that, again, gives Boston Red Legion a run for their money. So I see Dynasty staying strong right there in a second place for the overall. I see them doing great things and maybe even winning one this year, depending on, again, how sharp the Red Legion is. Okay, moving on. Third place overall, the Ironmen. I believe Ironmen and Philly are tied. Not sure how they worked that out in the NXL, but we'll go with Ironmen first. Number 3, again, obviously Oliver Lang's addition created some great things going on in that franchise. And now there's a new addition for the Ironman squad. That's right, Nicky Cuba has been rumored to be signed by the Ironman. We'll find out this week if he steps on the field with him. But here's an interesting situation. Nicky Cuba, as you remember, with Excessive in the past few years, took a little while to get used to that franchise, to kind of find his spot and where his tools and abilities could be best used. I see possibly the same thing happening with the Ironman. I think it's going to take a few tournaments for him to adjust and find his role on that team. Obviously, Oliver is unquestionably the leader of that campaign, and they've kind of worked everything out. You've seen the Ironman, again, produce very well in the NXL, 2 second places, I believe. So things are going well. So once they lock in Nicky and find his place, I see, again, Ironman and Dynasty battling with the Boston Red Legion for that top spot. So Ironman, I see them going up possibly this year for the 07 campaign. Number 4, Philly Americans. Again, 3 or 4, depending who we're talking about. Philly Americans, again, you got to hand it to the Gardners. Such a class act organization. These guys sport the championship, probably the only championship rings from the NXL, and a lot of these players proudly wear it. And they are a nice piece of hardware, I must say. However, I think this year is not the year of the Philly Americans. I foresee that franchise starting to go down this year. Didn't see any key free agent signings. Not sure what the Gardners have under wraps there in Philly at their training center. Again, obviously you have the money, and obviously they have the facilities, but again, don't see a lot of key things happening in Philly this year. And again, they really not sure what happened with that franchise in the MPPL. But as far as the NXL goes, that is their game. They are a big NXL squad. However, again, I do not see as strong as a finish in 07. Again, they're glad to prove me wrong. But again, for the Phil Americans, I see them stepping down a little bit this year in the 07 campaign. All right, moving on. Let's talk just randomly here. We're just going to go team by team. Chicago Aftershock. This has been a team of mediocrity for the last 4 or 5 years, I believe, in the NXL. Not really living up to their strong heritage with Rennick Miller and his playing days. Not sure if they're going to get back to that. I'm sure they want to, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. No, Maximus pointed out last week they lost 1 or 2 of their key players. So not sure what's going to be happening in the Chicago organization. I do not see them doing anything great. I see them right about the same, just kind of staying where they are, just kind of the middle-of-the-road mediocrity team there. And definitely not where they belong, but again, that's what I see happening in 07. Again, Chicago Aftershock, you're welcome to prove me wrong. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Baltimore Trauma. Now, here's a team that's going places. They pretty much won the Chris Lasoya lottery. As you remember, Lasoya was kind of bouncing around from squad to squad, and no one was quite sure where he was going to end up, but stayed with Trauma, is starting to work out with Trauma. You know, so progressively getting better in both leagues, but Trauma, I think, is more prepared for a NXL-type format. Great coaching they have on that squad, great ownership. So I look for great things coming from that organization in 07. As now, again, Lasoya is worked it into his role. I think the guys are ready to rely upon him, knowing that he's not going anywhere. So I think great things are going to happen in Trauma in the 07 campaign. Detroit Strange. I think really the biggest news for Strange is they still have the coolest bus in the NXL, that's for sure. I think the only ones with a team bus. I'm not sure how well it's running. I believe they got stranded not too long ago last year, but nonetheless, cool-looking bus. However, I don't see anything too cool happening to the team this year. Lost a lot of players to Doc's Raiders, and usually those guys have been trading players back and forth. Again, don't see a lot of key players left on that squad, and I think they're going to be a team in turmoil. I don't really see them going anywhere. I see them staying in the mediocre ranks for 07. And again, I think Jacksonville got the better of them as far as the picks and players go. So speaking of Jacksonville, let's go right there. Doc and the Jacksonville Raiders in silver and black stepping up to the pro ranks, not making the quick jump, such as teams as LTZ or X Factor coming from D2. These guys slowly and steadily work their way up. Doc has probably the best training facility that I've ever seen. I think he's committed. He is, one thing about Doc, some people have some negatives to say, but what I'll tell you is you know where he stands. There's no fooling with Doc wondering, gee, I wonder how Doc feels about this. He's going to tell you, and in a loud way. So you can even turn down the hearing aid because Doc will let you know where he stands. So sometimes that rubs the players the wrong way, but nonetheless, these guys are been performing well. I think you're going to see some great things from this franchise in 07. Not sure, they're definitely not championship caliber yet, but I see them knocking on the second, third, and fourth place in some of the divisions, in some of the tournaments, and again, starting to turn some heads because I think they have a lot of talent down there in the silver and black land of the Jacksonville Raiders. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Las Vegas LTZ. There's another first-class organization, Bart Monroe. What a guy. This guy is Mr. Long-Term. Let me tell you, he's been painstakingly putting things in place, has a young squad, but he is building, and right now he's still laying the foundation. And here's what's great about people. This is, you look at any kind of superstructure, any kind of skyscraper, anything like that. Usually takes them years to dig deep down, build the foundation. And next thing you know, boom, the building's up and running. And I think that's what's going to happen to LTZ. Not this year. I think, again, still working on the foundation, still putting the pieces together. They're not going to have Mike Paxson, obviously a key loss in the leadership on the field. But I like what they're doing. They're building something solid. And look for these guys to really step up in 08 and 09. And Bart's guys are going to be someone to reckon with coming in. Right now for 07, again, I still think they're in a building process, getting used to the pro level. But watch out in the next couple of years. These guys are on fire. I also have to say thank you to Bart for his participation with Moneyball. And again, that was another media nightmare where we hired a crew to do some great things, and they could not deliver. So we're now rehiring more people to put that together. So your patience is appreciated with Moneyball. And again, I have to thank Bart for being such a great participant as we attempt to make the sport better, bigger, faster for everybody.